The first thing I'd like to talk about is about access to Ombudsman offices, something that we've had since 1996 when Victoria first privatised the electricity industry, and then in 1998 in New South Wales. Where we are now is at EWON, is that we're actually expanding jurisdiction to include and make sure that all energy consumers in New South Wales have equal access to free, independent dispute resolution. Many consumers live in what is an embedded network, and historically this was a residential park, as in the picture here. But today it's many of those high-rise apartments that you see. It's retirement villages, it's a whole range of different type of housing, whether it's small villa units, maybe a dozen in a block, or 100 Meriton apartments on a small plot of land. Now these consumers need access to EDR, as do any other energy consumer. We've had at EWON access to talk to all these customers who've been able to bring a complaint to us under New South Wales legislation for quite so many years. But we haven't been able to always effectively resolve them because their energy supplier or their network is an exempt entity and therefore not a member of EWON. And more to the point, I guess, the members of EWON actually pay for those complaints. So we've been working, and when I say we, me with the other Ombudsman, in Victoria, in Queensland, in South Australia, involving the Victorian Government as well as the Australian Energy Regulator. And we're seeing the guidelines, or in Victoria, the GO, change so that effectively from perhaps 1 July this year, we will open our jurisdiction to have those entities become members. That will take membership of EWON from about 53 as it is now to around about 353 or thereabouts. Every time a new building is built, it could be one more. So we're doing a lot of work on that space, but it means that those consumers will have access and will be able to resolve their complaints the same as we can resolve complaints for other energy consumers. While talking about access, though, I think it's really to reinforce that all the current energy retailers and network companies also have an obligation to promote to their consumers access to Ombudsman schemes. And I guess it's my experience over recent years that perhaps we're seeing more complaints when customers are having to find their own way and they're not being referred by either contact centres or dispute resolution teams. The ACCC is also looking at this as part of its review, and that's required for consumers so that they can exercise their rights. I guess the next bit, and we've heard a lot about this already, which is clear pricing information. And I'm not going to work through all the words on the slides, but we know that it means that people don't understand and they may not engage with the industry because it's just too complex. And we've heard from a number of people about that already. So maybe there's a solution. Maybe we need what happened in the telco space. We need major price reform, a simpler way for people to understand what they're using. With that, though, as has also been mentioned today, we need to look at housing infrastructure, because social housing causes the highest bills from my experience and what we hear from day to day. So we need major reform there, and we need to look at what can happen to get usage down and people to be able to pay a rate, and they do want to pay, that is affordable for them, so they don't use so much, and therefore they don't even have to know how the pricing is structured. We don't care about how pricing is structured for things that we can afford. So why do we make it so complex, particularly for vulnerable consumers with respect to energy? And of course, if we're talking about vulnerable consumers, we're talking about managing customers who are experiencing affordability or hardship problems. We could turn the clock back, and every energy ombudsman today or in the past could actually perhaps say, put the similar stats up to you. That 60% of complaints to EWON are about billing, 20% or a bit more than that are about credit. And they are the same stats that just keep going on and on and on. But the thing that's changed is the amount of people that are now experiencing affordability issues, because the price of energy is so much more expensive now than in 1998 when EWON's doors first opened. And where will it be, sometime in the future? So things aren't changing, but more people are needing us. We're doing some things ourselves to actually change it, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but we actually need retailers to look at it differently. What is normal? What is a normal consumer? Where do they live? All of us would say that we're normal. We might argue with each other about how normal we may be. But when it comes to affordability, people experience different issues in different areas. If you are living in Wilcannia today and you need to go to the local IGA because perhaps your baby's out of nappies, it's going to cost you about $25 for a pack of 24 black and gold nappies. Now, if you go to Woolworths, around the corner here somewhere, you'll get 60 for the same price. They're Huggies, they're probably a lot better for your bub and for using a smaller amount of them. If you're spending that much on nappies or on baked beans or on whatever it might be, you don't have money to spend on energy. But at the same time, it's still probably 38 degrees out there today, and your air conditioner's probably working in a house that just causes it to run and run and run, and it won't be a 5-star air conditioner. So we've actually got to understand what normal is. To make that happen, we actually asked Origin to come out and work with us out in Wilcannia, in Menindee, and in Dayton, and then we expanded it further to there, so that we were having a Bring Your Bills Day and not just passing complaints onto Origin to fix, given that they have the largest representation out in regional, rural and remote areas, but they were actually experiencing it there. And I think there was a lot of culture shock happening over the course of that first week. But it meant that they actually solved some problems for consumers and they understood the landscape. What they've also found, because there was ongoing monitoring that we've been involved in as well, that those consumers have stayed engaged, that they are still paying towards affordability, towards usage and sometimes arrears, and that they are actually ringing up when things go wrong. And if you live out there, often things can go wrong. So we're actually engaging and being more collaborative. We've extended that further in Mount Druitt. Late last year, we had 6 energy retailers and 1 water, Sydney Water, come out to a Bring Your Bills Day and had community come in there. Again, energy retailers got to see that it is different wherever you are and for every person's circumstance. So we're really encouraging retailers to use, whether it's their domestic violence program or whether it's their reconciliation action program, but using those to actually make a difference for customers. Really positively, we actually saw Origin in one of its submissions to the AER's Customer Price Information Review actually talk about the effectiveness of this work. And I'm probably going to use this quote for quite some time. EWON's Bring Your Bills Days, where customers present their bills to the Ombudsman and participating retailers to get an understanding of their energy costs, obtain hardship assistance and find better offers, has proven to be a useful community outreach program and is a good way of engaging customers without access to the internet. Now, for a lot of years, I've had to actually argue with retailers about the value of our outreach and engagement program. So it's good that now I have a retailer's quote through a public submission to actually put the facts forward. Thank you, Origin. But as I mentioned, this is supported. There's good facts, there's good reasons to support this program. The other thing that really concerns me now is consumer confidence in this sector. And it's been low, but it's probably at its lowest, and I hope perhaps the lowest it could be, where it's got there over the last 6 to 8 months. It's great that there's been a lot of political focus on energy pricing and affordability, but there's also been a lot of media focus on it. And it's, from my view, it's actually causing consumer confidence to decrease further. Gavin used a great term before about villains and heroes, and I suppose in this space, from my perspective, we've got to actually work together. It's good that the media spotlight has seen customers EWON didn't speak to before coming to us. They even actually were ringing retailers in quite large numbers and therefore putting pressure on their contact centres. It's good that we're all speaking to more and more of these consumers who have felt not able to engage. That's a positive, but I guess we've all got to work together to increase consumer confidence. I might finish on that note. Thank you.